Look, divorce rates are average 50% globally. I've already done a whole podcast, deep dive into divorce. And infidelity is a big factor in that, right? We are constantly tempted to go somewhere else. And people who don't manage this properly allow it to destroy their relationships. Fact is, even if you are in a bad relationship, infidelity is a very poor way of managing that problem. I mean, generally that's secretly going to somebody else, which means you're not having conversations to try and repair the relationship, and all those conversations aren't working. Put it this way, like if you're really healthy, you'd end the relationship before cheating. So if you're engaging in infidelity or tempted to or whatever, and you're still in this relationship, then you've got a problem with ending things or setting boundaries or enforcing boundaries. That's a you problem, not a partner problem. And I think we slip into it gradually. It starts with things like porn or allowing ourselves to indulge in fantasies or allowing that workplace, you know, colleague friendship to develop a bit more than it needs to for the sake of the work. Allowing yourself to slip into validation seeking or getting approval. It could be thirst trap posting on Instagram, or it could be, flirting with the cafe barista, or it could be just looking at pictures online. This thing where you just start to blur the lines of loyalty. You do things where you know that if they caught you doing it, you'd get a big red flush of shame. So you can tell yourself it's okay to do it, you're not doing anything that major, but you also know if they knew you were doing this, there would be a problem. So you know you're crossing some sort of line, but you're just putting a toe over it and talking yourself into taking further steps. I think it also comes from a belief that the grass is greener. If you've got issues in your relationship, maybe she's on her period, maybe he's really stressed out with work, maybe you're long distance, you start to think that like this problem won't happen somewhere else. Somebody else, there's this, perfect relationship waiting for me, and this must be a sign that I'm not in it. Particularly around the concept of emotional hassle and inconvenience. If you're not enjoying all the emotions all the time with your partner, you start to indulge in the fantasy that maybe you would with someone else. It's so funny whenever my brain brings up somebody else I could be with, maybe someone from my past who I had a fling with, something like that, where there was nothing but good times, very briefly. I just map out like what would it actually be like to be in a relationship with them, and my logic just determines it will be basically more of the same. That let's say your partner's really grumpy when she's on her period. You think the other girl won't be? You think her menopause won't be the same as every other menopause? You think she won't have emotional issues? And sure, there are people who are a bit more optimistic or positive or fun to be around, but you think you won't get annoyed with that ever? As we start to tell ourselves the story that like being with someone else will definitely be better based on no information. We haven't been with the other person. We haven't figured out what it's like. They've got ex-partners. Why did their partners leave? Right? If they're so great, how come they're single? Like, we don't ask these questions. By the way, if you're enjoying this video and you want more stuff like this, you want content on nice guy recovery, healthy relationships, confidence building, check out the link below to join the Brojo community, or you can get in touch with me personally, dan@brojo.org, to talk about any other kind of support, including one-to-one coaching. And this is just all about like blurring the lines. Like I said, pushed by avoidance, or maybe we're actually in a bad relationship, but we're too scared to like tackle it directly. We just start sort of straying. Because, like I said, you got to ask yourself, how did I get to the position where I'm actually in a dilemma of choosing between two people? How did the second person even be allowed to get to this kind of pedestal in my life? How did I let that happen? And you'll find it's this fudging, this blurring of the lines slowly over time, where the thing just sort of seemed to develop naturally, but actually you were kind of opening doors one at a time to allow that progression. I think there's a lot of confusion, the difference between like a relationship getting a bit stale, a bit boring, a bit familiar, and actually being in a bad relationship. Like those are not the same thing. There's no person who's that amazing to be with all the fucking time. You show me any amazing person, and I'll show you a partner who's tired of their shit. Everybody's just a human, and you've just been seeing highlight reels. But when you're with someone in a relationship, what you get to see is the big picture. Now, sometimes that big picture is revealing that they're really not someone you should be with. But most of the time, what you just see is just people are people. Their shit stinks. They have annoying habits. Sometimes they're in bad moods. That's normal. That every relationship's going to have that. That's not abuse. That's not me. Doesn't mean you're with a narcissist. Okay, it just means you're with a human being. So if you're with someone and it feels like it's getting a little bit dull, that's not necessarily the same thing that they're a bad person for you, that you're in an unhealthy relationship that can't go the distance. But if you allow yourself to believe that that's true, especially if you do nothing to address it, then you can start to engage in this fantasy, hey, somebody else will be better, and then your brain will start with confirmation bias looking for that someone else and projecting a kind of angel vision onto them. There's a client I was working with who cheated, and he felt like the person he cheated with was this perfect angel, and she was cheating on her partner with him. It's like, dude, this perfect angel is a cheater. How do you not see that? How do you not see she's a normal human being with flaws and fallacies, right? There's no way she's perfect if she's doing this with you. If she was perfect, she wouldn't go anywhere near you because she'd be loyal to her husband, right? So we can be so blind to that other person, that crush. It's called the halo effect. We only see these positive things about them. We don't see the full picture because we've allowed ourselves to narrow our vision like that. I think it can also come from that ideal of the one, that Disney ideal. I don't know if the Gen X's and I don't know if the Gen Zs and the younger generation still have this shit, but my generation, millennials and above, we are really sold on the idea that there's a soulmate, this one person for you. And I think many of us took that to mean that we would just feel great about the person all the time. There's two problems with that. One is there's no such thing as the one. I mean, there was 3 billion people when I was a kid, and there's now 8 billion. We've got no problem fucking each other. We're not that strict with our standards, right? Secondly, like, even if someone is a great fit for you and the best fit you could possibly ever find, it doesn't mean they're going to be flawless people, right? Those two things are not the same. In fact, if they're really great for you, you're going to love them with their flaws. You'll find their flaws cute or endearing, or you'll just be like, this is worth it. There's some things my wife does that annoys me, but I think, that's just the payment for the great stuff. I'm willing to make that payment. There's other stuff that like first it annoyed me, but over the years I've come to love it as like the little quirks that make her who she is. I can see the same thing. Sometimes my daughter's having a tantrum, which is like, so cute. So when I really love someone, I actually start to develop a passion for the things that aren't what you might call positive traits. Okay. There's also self-distrust. I think this can be a big problem. If you've made bad choices in the past, relationship-wise, if you're in a pattern of making bad choices and you're aware of that, then you're going to become less and less keen to follow through on the decisions you've made, and maybe for good reason. You may, in fact, be in another bad relationship for all the same reasons you were in the previous ones. And that makes it a really tricky dilemma to figure out. Should I still be in this relationship? Is somebody else a better choice? But if that's always been your dilemma, then that's actually one of your problems. Maybe you haven't seen what it's like when you fully commit, and maybe you aggravate bad behavior from your partner by being avoidant and detached. But this makes it really difficult to choose. I think a big one on both sides is dishonesty. Dishonesty, especially at the start. One of the reasons we have the honeymoon period in a relationship is because people aren't fucking honest at the start. They only show the highlight reel. It's one thing that I learned the long hard way. And when I first met my wife, I was really no different to how I am now. And that was very important that I do that. And it was important that I make sure she does that as well. There were a lot of conversations at the start where I revealed like the dark truths about myself. I let her see what I'm really like. I didn't put an extra effort into hygiene or dates or anything that I wouldn't do 10 years from now. And I insisted that she do the same. I was like, just show me who you really are. Say what you really mean. Don't pretend. Don't try and amp up your mood or anything like that for me. Let me see what you really are. Because if I like that, then I'll keep liking that. Right? There won't be this drop off in 3 to 6 months' time where you kind of let go of the act. I'm like, oh. And I think so many people do this and they provoke the partner into doing this as well because they're both doing it. And they're just setting each other up for a disappointment. I think a lot of the time it's when that high wears off that we go, oh, it feels like we've actually dropped down. Even though the person's still good, it's just they set an even higher expectation that they can't maintain. So you've got to insist on honesty on both sides from the very beginning. If you're someone who farts a lot, keep farting, right? If you're someone who is gonna not wear makeup at home, then don't wear makeup, right? If you're someone who likes to play video games, don't pretend you don't play video games. Like, make sure that whatever they sign up to at the start is maintained and sustained, not an act that's going to eventually fall down. Or even if you keep it up, you're going to build up resentment and exhaustion. Like, no acting at the beginning goes a long way to creating easy commitment and loyalty because you know that you're signing up to something that's going to maintain. By the way, if you like what you're hearing, you're enjoying the podcast, please check out the link below to join Brojo or get in touch with me personally if you want to talk about one-to-one coaching, dan@brojo.org.